My son died at the age of 32, and at his funeral, my wife pointed a trembling finger at me in front of everyone and screamed, "You killed him, Arthur. It was your indifference that took his life." 3 days later, Faith received $600,000 from Darren's life insurance policy and threw me out of the house where we had lived for 35 years. I was left on the street, destroyed and crippled by guilt, believing I truly had killed my son by being an absent father. But when I went back to the apartment where Darren had lived to organize his things, I moved a heavy bookcase and discovered a safe built into the wall. Inside were $200,000 in cash, 3 flash drives, and a letter written in my son's shaky hand. "Dad, if you're reading this, something happened to me. Find out the truth about Mom. The flash drives have everything." When I opened the first file, I saw my wife kissing another woman, laughing, planning something that would chill my blood. What I uncovered on the other drives shattered everything I thought I knew. I realized something terrifying. Darren didn't die of natural causes. He was murdered, and the person who did it had been sleeping in my bed for 35 years. My name is Arthur Thorne. I'm 66 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was just a regular man. I was a structural engineer for 40 years. I built bridges, skyscrapers, and highways. I worked Monday through Saturday, sometimes even Sundays. I earned good money. Our house was large. We had 2 cars and took vacations every year. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. Faith seemed like everything a man could ask for. We got married when I was 31, and she was 28. She was beautiful, smart, and always knew what to say. She managed the house, the finances, everything. I worked, and she took care of the rest. We were a team, or so I believed. Darren was born a year later, my only son. But I'll be honest, I wasn't the father he deserved. There was always one more project, one more crucial meeting, one more business trip. Faith handled everything with him. I signed checks and gave him a clumsy pat on the back. I thought providing financially was sufficient. Darren grew up quiet, reserved. He studied software engineering and moved into his own apartment at 28. I visited him every 2 or 3 months, always in a rush. Our conversations were superficial. He never told me anything personal. I never asked. Faith said it was normal. I believed everything until 3 months ago, when my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was Faith, sobbing. "Arthur, it's Darren. You have to come to the hospital now. It's serious." When I arrived, she hugged me and whispered, "He's gone. Our son is gone." "A massive heart attack," the doctor said. Sudden, unexpected. At just 32, I just stood there, staring at my son's body under a white sheet, and I couldn't cry. I was in shock. The funeral was 3 days later. I was a zombie, shaking hands, nodding, but not really present. The guilt was eating me alive. And then, just as they were lowering the casket, Faith turned to me, pointed a trembling finger, and screamed, "You killed him, Arthur. It was your indifference that took his life. You were never there for him. You pushed him into this loneliness that destroyed his heart. 32 years waiting for his father to truly see him, murderer." She collapsed, weeping, and everyone looked at me like the monster she had just painted. I didn't say a word, because, deep down, I believed she was right. Maybe my absence really had driven him into a depression that broke his heart. I walked away carrying not only the pain of losing Darren, but the heavy burden of being his killer. Faith stopped speaking to me. I slept on the couch. Friends stopped calling. The looks on the street were those of contempt. A week later, Faith got the call from the insurance company. Darren had a $600,000 policy, and she was the sole beneficiary. 2 days after that, Faith came downstairs with 2 suitcases. I want a divorce, Arthur, and I want you out today. Now. I reminded her the house was in my name. She pulled out a piece of paper. Darren left a letter saying he never forgave you. My lawyer says that with this, and the witnesses at the funeral, I can prove psychological violence. I can take everything. You either leave voluntarily now, or I drag you through the courts. Your choice. I didn't have the strength to fight. I packed my bags and left. I rented a miserable studio apartment. 1 room, a filthy kitchenette, a moldy bathroom. I started drinking cheap bourbon. I'd wake up at noon, drink until I passed out, and repeat the cycle. 6 weeks passed like that, lost in darkness and alcohol, until my phone rang. It was Darren's landlord. Mr. Thorne, I need you to come and collect your son's belongings. I have to rent the place out. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice. I arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. 3rd floor, no elevator. The smell of stale air hit me immediately. Everything was exactly as Darren had left it. I started packing mechanically, trying not to think, trying not to feel. When I got to the large bookcase, I decided to move it to clean behind it. It was heavy, solid wood. I pushed with effort, and then I saw it. A small metal door built into the wall, painted the same color. A safe. My hands trembled. Why did Darren have a safe? What was he hiding? I tried to open it. It had a digital combination. I tried his birthday. Nothing. I tried mine. Nothing. I tried the date of our wedding anniversary. Click. The door opened. Inside were stacks of bills. Lots of stacks. I took them out and counted, and $200,000 in cash. Stacks of crisp $100 bills, perfectly organized. Where had Darren gotten so much money? Why was it hidden? But that wasn't what made my heart stop. At the back were 3 flash drives, marked with the numbers 1, 2, and 3, and underneath, a white envelope with my name on it. I pulled out the letter with trembling fingers. I recognized my son's handwriting, but it wasn't the firm script I remembered. This was shaky, rushed, desperate. Dad, if you're reading this, it means something happened to me. Find out the truth about Mom. The flash drives have everything. Forgive me for not being braver. Forgive me for not telling you anything when there was still time. I always loved you, even when you thought I didn't. Darren. I sat on the floor, with that letter in my hands, crying for the first time since he died. What truth? What was on those drives? Something happened to me. His death wasn't natural. I took the 3 flash drives, put them in my pocket, along with the money and the letter, locked the apartment, and raced back to my car. When I got to my studio, I plugged the first flash drive into my laptop with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The file opened, a folder full of videos dated over the last 6 months. I clicked on the first one. The screen lit up, showing a recording, and what I saw made my world completely disintegrate. It was Faith, my wife, passionately kissing another woman in a private dining room, laughing, touching. Then I heard their voices, clear as a bell. Shayla, my love, With the insurance money and what we've already saved, we can leave for Lisbon, Portugal, where no one knows us. The other woman, Shayla Sterling, replied, "And what if Darren talks?" Faith laughed. A cold, chilling sound I had never heard from her before. "Darren won't talk. I've taken care of that." My blood froze. I kept watching video after video, each one worse than the last. And I understood with absolute horror that my son had not died of natural causes. And the woman I had shared 35 years with was a monster I never truly knew. I couldn't tear my eyes from the screen. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse, but I kept clicking, sinking further into an abyss I didn't know existed. The first flash drive contained at least 20 video files, all dated during the last 6 months of Darren's life. Each one was a direct stab to my heart, my sanity, everything I had ever believed. In the second video, Faith and the woman named Shayla were in what looked like our own house, my house, in our living room. They were drinking wine, laughing, kissing on the couch where I had slept these last few weeks. The video's date was just 8 months earlier. I was on a business trip in another state, supervising the construction of a bridge. While I worked like an idiot to maintain our lifestyle, my wife brought her lover into our home, probably into our bed. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Shayla asked in the video, adjusting her hair. "It's been 3 years of this, Faith, 3 years of hiding." Faith stroked her face with a tenderness she hadn't shown me in the last 10 years. "Patience, my love. The old man has to die naturally. If I ask for a divorce now, I only get half of everything. But if I wait for him to die, I inherit it all. The house, the savings, the investments. And then there's the company life insurance policy. $200,000. It's not a fortune, but it adds up." Shayla chuckled. "You're terrible. You know that." Faith gave her a long kiss. "I'm practical. Besides, with how hard he works, the stress will kill him soon anyway. Heart attacks are common in men his age." I paused the video. I had to run to the bathroom to vomit. The bourbon I had drunk at the morning came up mixed with bile. I stayed there, kneeling in front of the filthy toilet in that miserable studio, trembling, crying, unable to process what I had just heard. My wife, the woman I slept beside for 35 years, the mother of my son, was waiting for me to die so she could inherit my money and run off with her lover, waiting like one waits for a bus or for the weekend to arrive. I washed my face with cold water and returned to the laptop. I had to continue. I had to know everything. The third video showed me something even worse. Darren was there, my son, walking into the living room, just as Faith and Shayla were kissing. The date was 4 months before his death. I saw the look of total shock on his face. "Mom, what's going on here?" Faith separated from Shayla with chilling composure. There was no panic on her face, no shame, just cold calculation. "Darren, honey, what a surprise. I thought you were at work." Darren looked at his mother as if she were a stranger. "I came back because I forgot some documents." "Mom, what is this? Who is she?" Shayla got up uncomfortably. "Faith, I think I should go." But Faith waved her off. "No, stay. Darren, sit down. We need to talk." What followed was one of the most disturbing conversations I have ever heard. Faith explained to Darren with obscene casualness that she had been in love with Shayla for years, that her marriage to me had been a mistake, and that she had only stayed for for the money and the appearances. Darren was devastated. I could see the tears running down his face in the video. "Does Dad know?" he asked, his voice broken. Faith laughed, that same cold laugh that had frozen my blood in the first video. Your father doesn't even know what day it is. He's so obsessed with his bridges and buildings that he hasn't noticed anything in the last 10 years. I could bring a whole circus into this house, and that man wouldn't notice. Darren stood up, trembling with rage. I'm going to tell him. He has a right to know. This isn't right. That's when I saw the shift in Faith. Her face transformed into something cold, threatening, dangerous. You are not going to tell him anything, Darren. Absolutely nothing. Do you hear me? Darren took a step back. He's my father. He has the right to know his wife is betraying him. Faith moved toward him. And although the video didn't have the best angle, I could see her grabbing his arm tightly. Listen to me, little boy. If you say one word to your father, if you ruin my plans, I will make sure you regret it. I know all your secrets. I know what you did in college. I know about the money you stole from that software company 2 years ago. I know everything. And if you open your mouth, I'll make sure you end up in prison. Is that clear? Darren pulled away abruptly. You're crazy. You are completely crazy. And he ran out of the house. The video ended there. I stayed, staring at the black screen, processing what I had just seen. My wife had blackmailed my son. She had threatened him and mentioned something about stolen money, about secrets. Was it true? Had Darren done something illegal? Or were they Faith's lies to control him? I opened the next video. This one was different. It wasn't a hidden camera recording. It was a video Darren had recorded himself, looking straight into the lens. He looked gaunt, hollow-eyed, as if he hadn't slept in days. The date was 2 weeks before his death. Dad, Darren began, his voice immediately breaking. If you're watching this, it means what I feared has happened. It means Mom won. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. I don't even know where to start. I guess at the beginning. 4 months ago, I found out Mom has a lover, a woman named Shayla. I saw them together kissing in our house. When I confronted them, Mom threatened me. She said if I told you anything, she would destroy me, and she had the leverage to do it. Dad, 2 years ago, when I was working at that software firm, I made a terrible mistake. I stole $50,000. I know. It was awful. I was desperate. I had gambling debts I couldn't pay, and I thought I could put it back without anyone noticing. But Mom found out. I don't know how, but she did, and she's been using it to control me ever since. Darren took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. But that's not the worst part, Dad. The worst came later. I started investigating Mom. I hired a private investigator with the money I managed to save, and what I discovered. God, Dad, Mom has been robbing you for years. The accounting firm, where she supposedly worked as a secretary 5 years ago, doesn't exist. It never existed. That money she claimed she earned, those end-of-year bonuses she mentioned, it was all a lie. She was taking money from your accounts little by little. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Small amounts you wouldn't notice right away. But all in all, Dad, over the past 5 years, Mom has stolen more than $300,000 from you. I had to pause the video again. $300,000. I got up and walked around the small apartment, trying to breathe, trying not to scream. I forced myself back to the chair, forcing my eyes to keep watching. Darren continued. I have all the documents, Dad, bank statements, transfers, everything. It's on the second flash drive. Mom created phantom accounts in your name. She signed documents, forging your signature. She's good at it, Dad, very good. And all the money went into a joint account she shares with Shayla. They're planning to leave together. They're waiting. They're waiting for you to die so they can take everything. Darren covered his face with his hands. When he looked back at the camera, his eyes were red. I wanted to tell you all this in person, Dad. I really did. But I'm scared. Mom has been saying strange things to me lately. That I look tired, that I should see a doctor, that my heart might be weak, like Grandpa's. She keeps insisting I take some vitamins she bought. Red pills in an unmarked bottle. I haven't taken them, Dad. Something tells me they aren't vitamins. I've been throwing them out when she isn't looking. But last night, when I got to my apartment, I found that same bottle of pills here in my kitchen. She has a key to my apartment. She came in when I wasn't here and left the pills. I'm scared, Dad. Really scared. The video shook because Darren's hands were trembling as he held the camera. If something happens to me, Dad, if I suddenly die of a heart attack or something, please don't believe it was natural. Please investigate. The flash drives have everything you need. The proof of the theft, the videos of Mom with Shayla, everything. And the money in the safe? That's the money I managed to recover. I couldn't get it all back, but I took $200,000 from the account Mom shared with Shayla. I did it a week ago. She doesn't know yet. When she finds out, she's going to go crazy. That's why I'm recording this now. That's why I left instructions with my bank that if something happens to me, you should be contacted to clear out my apartment. Forgive me, Dad. Forgive me for not being braver. Forgive me for all my mistakes. But please, please don't let Mom get away with it. Don't let her win. I love you, Dad. I always did. I wish I had told you more often. The video ended. The screen went black, and I sat there in that miserable studio with the words of my dead son echoing in my ears. My son had loved me. My son had tried to protect me. My son had died trying to expose his own mother, and I, the blind fool that I was, had believed every single lie Faith told me. I had let her kick me out of my own house. I had carried the guilt of his death when she was responsible all along. I looked at the other 2 flash drives on the table. There was still a lot more to discover, much more horror to face. But one thing was crystal clear now. Maeve had killed our son, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. I spent the entire night awake, plugging the second flash drive into my laptop. My eyes burned, my head throbbed, but I couldn't stop. Every second that passed without knowing the full truth was a wasted second. One more second that Faith walked free while my son was under the ground. The second flash drive opened, revealing meticulously organized folders. Darren had been systematic, careful. There were folders labeled bank statements, fraudulent transfers, forged documents, Shayla joint account, communications. I opened the first folder, and what I saw confirmed everything Darren had said in the video. There were the statements from my own bank accounts, but with transactions I never authorized. Transfers of $5,000 here, $8,000 there, $12,000 over there, all heading to an account I had never seen before. I followed the money trail as best I could. Though I'm no finance expert, Darren had done the work for me, highlighting every suspicious transaction with margin notes. Dad was on a business trip in Houston, this date. Impossible for him to authorize this. This signature doesn't match Dad's. I zoomed in and saw clear differences. Mom had access to the checkbook that day. I saw her in the study. My son had been a detective. A detective trying to protect his idiot father who couldn't see what was right under his nose. The forged documents folder made my blood boil. Faith had forged my signature on at least 20 different documents. Transfer authorizations, loan applications, account openings. She had practiced my signature until it was perfected. Darren had even managed to get copies of my legitimate documents for comparison. The differences were subtle, almost imperceptible, but they were there. An expert lawyer or a handwriting analyst would spot them in seconds. But what truly devastated me was the communications folder. Darren had somehow managed to hack into Faith and Shayla's emails. I don't know how he did it. My son was a software engineer, after all. But there they were, hundreds of emails between them, some dating back as far as 4 years. The first ones were romantic, love letters that turned my stomach. My dearest Shayla, every day I spend with that man is torture. I dream of the day we can be together freely. Faith, my love, have patience. Soon we'll have all the money we need to start our new life. But the recent emails, those from the last 6 months, were different, darker, more sinister. There was one from Shayla, dated 3 months before Darren's death, that read, "What about the boy? Are you sure he won't talk? We can't risk him ruining everything now that we're so close." Faith's reply chilled me to the bone. "Don't worry about Darren. I have a plan. Dr. Emmett Hayes owes me favors. Big favors. He can make it look natural. A heart attack in a young man with a genetic predisposition won't raise suspicion. Arthur's father died of a heart attack at 50. It's perfectly believable." I had to get up and walk, breathe, process. My wife had planned our son's murder. She had written it in an email as casually as one plans a vacation. Cold, calculating, monstrous. And she mentioned a doctor, Emmett. I searched for more emails with that name. I found at least 15. Dr. Emmett Hayes turned out to be our family physician, the same doctor who had signed Darren's death certificate, the same one who had declared it a sudden, unexpected heart attack. In an email 2 months before Darren's death, Faith wrote directly to Emmett, "Dear Emmett, you know what I need. The pills have to be undetectable in a routine autopsy. And there won't be a real autopsy if you sign the certificate declaring natural causes, will there? Remember what you did at the hospital 3 years ago? The fake opioid prescriptions, the patients who conveniently died when their families could pay. Help me with this, and your secret is safe. Refuse, and I destroy you." Emmett's response was short and terrified. "Fine, Faith, I'll do what you ask. But after this, we're even. I don't want to hear from you ever again." There was the absolute proof. Faith had blackmailed a corrupt doctor into providing her with medication that would kill Darren, simulating a heart attack. And that same doctor had signed the death certificate without asking questions, without ordering a full autopsy. Everything was arranged. Everything was planned. And I had been so blind, so consumed by my guilt and pain, that I never questioned a thing. I kept reading. I found emails where Faith and Shayla discussed how to administer the pills to Darren. "He's getting suspicious," Faith wrote. "He won't take the vitamins I give him. I'll have to be more creative. I can put them in his food when he comes for dinner, or in his coffee. He's so predictable. Always takes black coffee, no sugar. Another email. This one was just a week before his death. I did it. I crushed the pills and put them in his coffee this morning when he came for breakfast. He drank the whole cup. Emmett says, with the dose I gave him, the effect will begin in a few days. His heart will gradually weaken, and then, boom, cardiac arrest. No one will suspect a thing. I closed the laptop and wept. I cried harder than I had cried my entire life. My son had been slowly poisoned by his own mother. He had suffered. He had felt his body weaken. He probably felt chest pains, difficulty breathing, and thought he was truly sick. He never knew for sure he was being murdered until it was too late. And I wasn't there. I wasn't there to protect him, to save him, or even to hold his hand in his final moments. But there was still the third flash drive, the one Darren had marked with the number 3. With trembling hands, I plugged it in. This one contained only 3 files. The first was another video of Darren, recorded just 2 days before his death. He looked terrible, pale, sweating, breathing with difficulty. Dad, I feel really bad. I think Mom managed to give me something. I don't know when or how, but my heart is racing. My chest hurts. I went to the hospital yesterday, and Dr. Hayes checked me out. He said everything was fine, that it was stress, but I know he's lying. I know he's working with her. I'm going to die, Dad. I know it. I can feel it. But at least I documented everything. At least the truth will come out. The second file was a security camera video. Darren had installed a hidden camera in the kitchen of our house. The date was 8 days before his death. There was Faith in our kitchen with a mortar and pestle, crushing pills. She crushed them into a fine powder. Then she made coffee, and with chilling calm, poured the powder into one of the mugs. Darren's jug, the one he always used when visiting, with his college logo. The video showed Darren arriving minutes later, greeting his mother with a kiss on the cheek, unsuspecting, drinking that coffee while they talked about trivialities. My wife was smiling as she watched him drink his own death. The third file was an audio recording. It was from the night before Darren died. I recognized the voices immediately, Faith and Shayla. "Are you sure it will work?" Shayla asked. "Completely sure," Faith replied. "Emmett says tomorrow or the day after, his heart will collapse. And when it does, I'll be there to call the ambulance, to cry, to play the role of the devastated mother. The old man will feel so guilty, he won't question anything. And when I publicly accuse him at the funeral of killing his own son with his indifference, everyone will believe me. He'll be destroyed, isolated. It will be easy to get him out of the house and keep everything." Shayla laughed and, "You're brilliant. Terrifying, but brilliant." "Thank you, love. Now we just have to wait. Darren's insurance is another $600,000. Added to what we already have, that's nearly $1 million. We can go to Lisbon, Portugal, buy that beachfront home you wanted, and live like queens." I shut everything down. I sat in the darkness of that horrible studio, with the entire truth falling on me like a ton of bricks. My wife had murdered our son for money, for a damn $1 million and a house on the beach. She had planned every detail, manipulated every situation, and had almost gotten away with it. But I wasn't going to let her. Darren had risked everything to leave me these proofs. He had died knowing his mother was killing him, but also knowing the truth would come to light. I wasn't going to let him down again. This time, I was going to be there for him. This time, I was going to be the father I should have always been. And this time, Faith was going to pay for every second of suffering she caused my son. For 3 days, I locked myself in that miserable studio, planning every move. I couldn't just go to the police with the flash drives. I needed to be smart. Faith was manipulative, convincing. If I showed up as the bitter, alcoholic widower accusing his wife without solid proof, no one would believe me. She would paint me as an obsessed madman seeking revenge. I needed more. I needed something irrefutable. I stopped drinking. I poured all the cheap bourbon down the drain. I showered, shaved, and cut my own hair in front of the cracked bathroom mirror. I had to look sane, presentable. I took my suit out of the bottom of a box and ironed it as best I could. I looked like a different man than I had been these past few weeks. On the outside, at least. I made copies of everything. I stored the 3 complete flash drives in different places. One in a safety deposit box I rented at a downtown bank. Another I sent by certified mail to the address of Malik Preston, Darren's best friend. The third I hid inside the engine of my old car. If anything happened to me, if Faith tried to silence me as she had silenced Darren, the evidence would still exist. Next, I found Malik. I needed to talk to someone who knew Darren, someone I could trust. Malik worked at the same tech company Darren had. I went to his office on a Wednesday afternoon. When he saw me walk into the reception area, his face showed surprise and a touch of discomfort. "Mr. Thorne, I wasn't expecting you." I asked him to talk in private. We went to a nearby coffee shop. "Malik, I need you to tell me the truth. Did Darren say anything strange to you in his last few weeks? Anything about his mother?" Malik nervously stirred his coffee. "Mr. Thorne, I shouldn't, Darren made me promise I wouldn't say anything." I leaned forward, looking him straight in the eyes. "My son is dead, Malik, and I believe he was murdered. I need to know what he told you." Malik paled. His hands trembled around the cup. "Oh, God. You suspect it too." He was silent for a moment, wrestling internally. Finally, he spoke. "Darren came to my place about 2 months ago. He was terrified, Mr. Thorne. I'd never seen him like that. He told me about his mom, about the lover, about the stolen money. He said she was threatening him. Then about 3 weeks before he died, he called me at midnight. He was crying. He said he felt weird, that his heart was beating differently, that he thought his mother had given him something. I told him to go to the hospital, to get tested. He said he had gone, but the doctor was a friend of his mom's, and he couldn't trust anyone. The last time I saw him was 2 days before he died. He came to my office and gave me a sealed envelope. He told me that if anything happened to him, I should give it to you. But after the funeral, when your wife accused you in front of everyone, when everyone was saying you had been a bad father, I got scared. I thought maybe you wouldn't want to know, or that you wouldn't care, or worse, that you were involved somehow. I kept the envelope. I still have it." My heart pounded. "I need that envelope, Malik. Now." He nodded. "It's at my apartment. I can bring it tomorrow." I showed him one of the flash drives. "Before you do, I need you to see something." We went back to his office. It was late. Almost everyone had gone. I plugged the drive into his computer and showed him the videos, the emails, the proof. Malik covered his mouth, horrified. "Dear God, she killed him. She really killed him." His eyes filled with tears. "Darren was my best friend. We'd been friends since high school. And that woman, help me get justice," I said. "Help me make sure she pays for this." Malik nodded with determination. "Whatever you need, Mr. Thorne. Whatever it takes." That night, Malik brought the envelope Darren had left him. Inside was a letter for me, telling me to trust Malik, that he knew part of the truth. There was also a key, a key to a safety deposit box at another bank. The next day, we went together. Inside that box were more documents, medical records Darren had somehow obtained, showing that Dr. Emmett Hayes had been under investigation 3 years prior for illegally prescribing opioids, cases of patients who died under suspicious circumstances, all filed away without charges thanks to influence and money. Darren had figured out how Faith had leverage over that doctor. There were also photos of Faith and Shayla together at restaurants, hotels, and beaches. Darren had hired a private investigator who had followed them for months. There were receipts for Faith's expensive purchases using the stolen money, costly jewelry for Shayla, romantic trips, all meticulously documented. With Malik by my side, I finally had the courage to do what I had to do. We contacted a criminal defense attorney, one Malik knew and trusted, a man in his 50s named Ira Joss. We showed him everything. Ira reviewed every document, every video, every email for hours. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled. "This is solid. Very solid. We have fraud, grand theft, conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder, forgery, and more. We can take this to the district attorney's office, but we need one more thing." "What is it?" I asked. Ira looked at me seriously. "We need a confession, or at least an attempt to get one. If we can get her to admit something, even partially, while being recorded, the case becomes airtight, with no possible escape." The idea terrified and thrilled me at the same time. "You want me to confront her?" Ira nodded. "With a hidden recorder. I can get you a professional device. You go tomorrow night. Show up unannounced. Tell her you need to talk. Keep her talking. Ask open-ended questions. If she starts to confess, let her speak. Don't interrupt her. Narcissists always want their intelligence recognized, even when they're getting caught." I accepted. It was risky, but I had to try. For Darren. Ira prepared everything. He gave me a small recording device that looked like a shirt button. "Go tomorrow evening. Arrive without warning. Tell her you want to talk. Keep her engaged. If she starts to confess, let her speak." I didn't sleep that night. I mentally rehearsed what I would say, how I would confront her. The next day, I put on my best suit, attached the recording button, and drove to the house that had been mine for 30 years, the house where my son had been poisoned. It was time to face the monster that had slept beside me all this time. I parked my old car in front of the house at 8 o'clock that evening. The lights were on. I could see movement through the living room curtains. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it would explode. I rang the doorbell. Silence. Then footsteps approaching. The door opened, and there she was. Faith Thorne, my wife, my son's killer. She looked different, younger somehow. She was wearing new, expensive clothes. Her hair was freshly styled. The $600,000 from Darren's insurance had apparently been put to good use. When she saw me, her expression changed from surprise to disgust. "What are you doing here, Arthur?" Her voice was cold, distant. "I need to talk to you. It's important." She crossed her arms. "We have nothing to talk about. I told you not to come back." I stood firm. "It's about Darren. Please, Faith, just a few minutes." Something in my tone must have made her hesitate. She sighed dramatically, and opened the door. 5 minutes. Then you leave." I walked into the house. Everything looked the same, but different. There were subtle changes. New photos on the walls, furniture rearranged, as if she were slowly erasing my existence. We sat down in the living room, facing each other. She was on the couch, where she had kissed Shayla. I was in the armchair, where I used to read the paper on Sundays. "What do you want?" she asked impatiently. I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the funeral, about how I killed Darren with my indifference." She raised an eyebrow. "And I think you're right. I was a bad father, an absent husband. I deserve your hatred. I deserve this loneliness." I saw something in her eyes. Satisfaction, enjoyment. "At least you recognize it," she said, leaning back on the couch, relaxing. "Your whole life working, building things out of concrete, and you neglected the only thing that mattered. Your family." I nodded, playing my part. "I know. And now Darren is dead. Because of me. My only son." I wiped real tears from my eyes. "Tell me, Faith, how can I live with this? How can I move on, knowing I killed him?" She leaned forward. Her eyes were gleaming with something dark. "You can't, Arthur. It's that simple. You carry that guilt until the day you die. Which I hope is soon." The cruelty in her voice was palpable. "Every night, you'll remember that your son died alone, with a broken heart, waiting for a call from you that never came." "Did he suffer?" I asked in a low voice. "Did Darren suffer at the end?" Faith tilted her head, considering. "I suppose so. Heart attacks are painful. They say it feels like an elephant sitting on your chest. He probably called for help. He probably thought of you in his final moments, wondering where his father was. Every word was a stab, but I needed more." "You know what's strange, though?" I said, changing tactics. "I went to his apartment a few days ago to pack his things. I saw a slight change in her expression, tension, and I found something interesting. A safe, hidden behind the bookcase." Her face paled for a second, then recovered. "Darren was always paranoid. He was probably storing important documents there." "There was money," I continued, watching every micro-expression. "A lot of money. $200,000 in cash." "Did you know Darren had that much money saved up?" She stiffened. "That's impossible. Darren didn't have that kind of money." "That's what I thought, too," I said softly. "I wondered where he got it." "Did you know he had so much money saved?" She stood up abruptly. "I don't know what you're talking about, and frankly, I don't care. That's it. Did you come here to tell me about money?" I stood up, too. "There were other things, too. Flash drives, documents, letters." I saw panic cross her face before she could hide it. "Your 5 minutes are up, Arthur. Get out of my house." But I didn't move. "Do you know what was on those flash drives, Faith?" She stepped back. "I'm not interested. Goodbye." "Videos," I continued, advancing slowly. "Videos of you with Shayla. Emails planning to rob me. Bank documents showing the fraud. And something else. Something about Dr. Emmett Hayes and some pills." Her face lost all color. "I don't know what you're talking about. Are you crazy?" "Am I crazy?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Or have I finally discovered the truth?" Faith changed her strategy. Her eyes filled with fake tears. "Arthur, please, you're confused. The pain of losing Darren is making you imagine things." But I didn't stop. Darren knew everything. He knew about Shayla, he knew about the stolen money, and he knew you were poisoning him. The words left my mouth like venom. She stopped acting. The tears vanished. Her face transformed into something cold and calculating. "If you have proof, why are you here? Why didn't you go straight to the police?" She crossed her arms, defiant. "Because you have nothing. Darren was a paranoid liar who invented stories." "So you admit you knew he was suspicious?" I pressed her. She realized her mistake. "I admit nothing. I want you to leave now, or I'm calling the police. Call them, I said quietly. Tell them your husband, who you stole $300,000 from, is here asking uncomfortable questions. Tell them the father of the son you poisoned wants answers. Faith looked at me with pure hatred. You can't prove anything. Nothing. No, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. I have copies of everything, Faith. Every email, every video, every transaction. The police are going to review them. The experts will analyze the forged signature. They're going to exhume Darren's body and do a complete autopsy. They're going to find the drugs in his system and trace those drugs back to Dr. Emmett. How long do you think that coward will last before he turns you in to save himself? She stood motionless, processing. Then, to my surprise, she laughed, a bitter, defeated laugh. You're smarter than I thought. Or Darren was. I guess the kid had some good in him after all. She sat down again with unnerving calm. Fine. You want the truth? I'll give it to you. Yes, I had a relationship with Shayla. Yes, I took money from your accounts. And you know what? I deserved it. 35 years putting up with you, 35 years being invisible to you. That money was compensation for years lost. And Darren, I asked, my voice breaking, was he just an obstacle to your happiness too? Faith looked at me without emotion. Darren was going to ruin everything. He found out about Shayla. He threatened to tell you. I couldn't allow it. Not when I was so close to being free. My voice came out as a whisper. You killed him. You killed your own son. She shrugged. Dr. Hayes handled the technical details. I just facilitated things. Darren never knew what hit him, really. It was fast, relatively painless, more mercy than you showed him in life. I had the confession. I had everything recorded. But I needed to keep her talking a little longer. And the insurance? It was all for $600,000. Faith smiled. And for freedom. And for love. Things you would never understand. She stood up and walked toward the window. Now that you know everything, what are you going to do, Arthur? Call the police? Go ahead. It'll be your word against mine. A grieving wife versus a bitter, alcoholic husband, seeking revenge. Who are they going to believe? I smiled for the first time in months. It's not my word against yours, Faith. It's your own voice confessing to a murder. I touched the button on my shirt. This whole conversation is being recorded. Every single word. Her face completely broke down. No, you didn't. You can't. She ran toward me, trying to tear off my shirt, but I backed away. It's too late. It's done. Faith fell to her knees, finally understanding that she had lost. And I took out my phone to call my lawyer, Ira Joss. It was time for justice to finally arrive for my son. I called Ira from the car. Faith had stayed inside the house, paralyzed by shock. I have everything, I told him, my voice trembling. She confessed. She admitted to poisoning Darren. She admitted to the fraud. It's all recorded. Ira took a deep breath on the other end. Perfect. Don't go back to your apartment. Come straight to my office. I'm calling the district attorney right now. This moves fast from here on out. An hour later, I was in Ira's office with Malik. The lawyer had called a trusted prosecutor, a woman in her 40s named Savannah Rhodes. She had a reputation for being relentless with murder cases. She listened to the complete recording without interrupting. When it finished, she was silent for a few seconds. This is gold, she finally said. With this confession and the documentary evidence you have, I can get arrest warrants tonight. I need you to hand over copies of everything. The flash drives, the bank documents, the emails, everything. Ira already had everything prepared. We gave her copies of every piece of evidence. Savannah reviewed them quickly, taking notes. We're going to arrest 3 people. Faith, for first-degree murder, fraud and forgery. Dr. Emmett Hayes, as an accomplice to murder. And Shayla Sterling, as an accomplice to fraud, and possibly conspiracy to commit murder. The judge will sign the warrants before midnight. The raids will happen simultaneously tomorrow at dawn, so none of them can alert the others. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in a cheap hotel, tossing and turning, imagining what was coming. At 6 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Savannah. All 3 are under arrest. Faith tried to flee. She had 2 suitcases packed and plane tickets to Lisbon for herself and Shayla, leaving this afternoon. We caught her just in time. Dr. Hayes immediately broke down and is cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. Shayla is denying everything, but with the evidence we have, it won't do her any good. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The media latched onto the story. "Murderous mother poisons son for insurance money," screamed the headlines. My photo was on every news broadcast. The people who had judged me at the funeral now offered awkward apologies. Neighbors who had stopped speaking to me showed up at my door with food and words of support. I didn't want any of it. I just wanted justice for Darren. The case moved surprisingly fast. With the recorded confession and Dr. Hayes' cooperation, the prosecution had an airtight case. Dr. Hayes testified that Faith had blackmailed him using evidence of his past crimes. He confessed to providing Diggs in a heart medication that in high doses simulates a heart attack. He explained how he instructed Faith on how to administer it without raising suspicion, and admitted to signing the death certificate without performing a full autopsy, declaring natural causes when he knew it was murder. They ordered the exhumation of Darren's body. It was the hardest day of my life, watching my son unearthed, his casket opened for forensic analysis. The experts found exactly what Emmett had said: lethal levels of Digsin in the preserved tissues. Cardiac damage consistent with poisoning, not natural causes. The autopsy confirmed that Darren had been slowly murdered over several weeks. The trial began 4 months after the arrest. I was present every day, sitting in the front row, looking directly into Faith's eyes. She never returned my gaze. She sat next to her defense attorney, an expensive man who tried to argue that the confession had been obtained under duress, that I had emotionally manipulated her. But the judge rejected every motion. The evidence was too solid. The emails, the videos, the bank records, Dr. Hayes' testimony, and above all, the recording where Faith admitted in her own words to facilitating our son's murder. Malik testified about his last conversations with Darren, about the fear he had, about how he knew something was wrong. The private investigator Darren had hired testified about the photos of Faith and Shayla, about their movements for months. Bank experts explained the elaborate fraud scheme. Handwriting analysts showed the forged signatures. It was overwhelming, crushing, irrefutable. Shayla tried to save herself by blaming everything on Faith. She testified that she knew nothing about the plan to murder Darren, that she only knew about the stolen money. But the emails contradicted her. There was her question. What about the boy? Are you sure he won't talk? She was involved. She knew, and she did nothing to stop it. That made her an accomplice. The most powerful moment of the trial was when they played the video Darren recorded 2 days before he died. The entire courtroom fell silent as my son, pale and sweating, looked into the camera and said, "Dad, I feel really bad. I think Mom managed to give me something. I'm going to die, Dad. I know it. I can feel it." People in the jury were crying. Even the judge had to take a moment to compose herself. When they played the recording of my confrontation with Faith, her voice filled the room. Darren was going to ruin everything. I couldn't allow it. Dr. Hayes handled the technical details. I just facilitated things. I looked at Faith at that moment. Her head was down, her shoulders slumped. She knew she was finished. The final arguments were devastating. Savannah Rhodes, the prosecutor, painted a complete picture of a cold, calculating woman who had spent years robbing her husband, who had blackmailed a doctor, who had poisoned her own son for money. Darren was not just a victim, Savannah said, looking at the jury. He was an obstacle between Faith Thorne and the lifestyle she wanted, and she eliminated him with the same coldness with which one deletes a problem from a spreadsheet, without remorse, without humanity, without a shred of maternal love. The defense attorney tried to humanize Faith. He spoke of years in an unhappy marriage, of feeling trapped, of seeking love elsewhere. But he couldn't explain the murder. He couldn't justify poisoning your own son. His defense collapsed under the weight of the evidence. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours. When they returned, the tension in the room was palpable. The judge asked, "Have you reached a verdict?" The jury, foreman, a serious-looking older man, stood up. "Yes, Your Honor." "In the case of the murder of Darren Thorne, how do you find the defendant, Faith Thorne?" The foreman looked directly at Faith. "Guilty of first-degree murder." The room erupted. Faith slumped in her chair. I closed my eyes, feeling the tears run down my face. Justice. Finally, justice for my son. They continued with the other charges. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of forgery. Guilty of conspiracy. Every word was a vindication. Shayla Sterling was also found guilty of conspiracy and fraud. Dr. Hayes, due to his cooperation, received a reduced sentence, but still faced years in prison. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge looked at Faith with absolute contempt. In my 30 years as a judge, I have rarely seen a case of such pure malice. You not only murdered your son, but you then manipulated the narrative to blame an innocent man. You attempted to destroy your husband emotionally and financially after robbing him for years. You have shown not 1 ounce of remorse. She paused. Faith Thorne, I sentence you to 25 years in prison, without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, plus 10 consecutive years for fraud and other charges, a total of 35 years. Faith was 63 years old. She would die in prison. Shayla received 15 years. Emmett Hayes, for his cooperation, received 20 years. All 3 would be transferred to maximum security prisons. That same night, as they were escorting Faith out of the courtroom in handcuffs, she finally looked at me. Our eyes met for the last time. I saw no repentance, only hatred. And that confirmed to me that I had done the right thing. This monster did not deserve forgiveness. She deserved exactly what she was receiving. After the trial, my life entered a strange calm. Justice had been served. But the void Darren left behind was still there, vast and unfathomable. I returned to the house that had been mine. The court returned it to me along with everything Faith had stolen. The $600,000 from the life insurance policy were also claimed and returned. The money Faith had transferred to the joint account with Shayla was frozen and recovered. In total, I recovered almost $800,000 between the insurance money, the stolen funds, and what Darren had hidden in the safe. I walked into the house for the first time in months. It smelled of stale air and abandonment. I walked through the empty rooms, remembering. Darren took his first steps here. We celebrated his 10th birthday there. We ate thousands of silent dinners at that table while I read work documents. Every corner held a memory, and every memory was a stab of regret. Not for what Faith did, but for what I failed to do. For all the times I chose work over my son, for all the conversations we never had, for all the I love yous I never said. I sat on the floor of Darren's room. It still held some of his teenage furniture, old posters on the walls, science trophies on the shelf. I opened his closet and found clothes from when he was 16, a leather jacket I bought him for his birthday. I held it against my chest, and finally, completely alone, allowed myself to collapse. I cried harder than I had cried my entire life. I cried for my son. I cried for the father I never was. I cried for all the lost opportunities I could never recover. Malik came to visit me the following week. He found me packing things, getting ready to move. "You're going to sell the house, Mr. Thorne?" I nodded. "I can't live here. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of what I lost." Malik sat on the stairs. "Darren talked about you a lot in those last few months. I know you think you were a bad father, but Darren never stopped loving you. He always said you were the hardest working man he knew, that you built things that lasted, that you were a man of your word." I wiped my tears. "I built bridges and buildings, Malik, but I didn't build a relationship with my son. What good is everything else?" Malik pulled out his phone. "Darren sent me this about a year ago. He told me to show it to you someday, if something happened. I think today is that day." He handed me the phone. It was a voice message. I pressed play, and Darren's voice filled the empty room. "Malik, brother, I've been thinking a lot lately about my dad. I know people think I resent him for working so much, and yeah, I wish he'd been more present when I was a kid. But the truth is, I get it. My dad came from nothing. His family had nothing. He worked himself to death to give us everything he never had, and he did it. I never lacked food, clothes, education. He was able to pay for my college with no debt. He taught me the value of hard work, even if it was more by example than by words. He's not perfect, but he's my dad, and I love him. If anything happens to me, tell him that. Tell him I love him and that I never blamed him for anything, that I'm proud to be his son." The message ended. I sat there with the phone in my hand, trembling. Darren had forgiven me, even knowing he was going to die, even in the midst of the horror of discovering his mother was killing him. He found time to leave me that message, to make sure I knew he loved me. "Thank you," I told Malik, my voice broken. "Thank you for keeping this." He nodded. Darren was special. The best friend I ever had. I miss him every day. I sold the house 2 months later. I couldn't stay there. I bought a small apartment downtown, close to where Darren had lived. I wanted to be near him somehow. I visited his grave for the first time since the burial. I brought fresh flowers. I knelt before the headstone. Darren Thorne, beloved son, 1993 to 2025. The words were insufficient to capture who he had been. "Hello, son," I began, feeling ridiculous talking to a stone. "I know I'm late, as always, but I came to tell you I did it. I got justice for you. Your mom is in prison. She'll die there. Shayla, too. And the doctor who killed you is paying for what he did." I wiped my tears. "I wish I could tell you it makes me feel better, that revenge brings peace, but it doesn't. It only reminds me that you're not here, that you'll never be here, and that I wasted 32 years I could have spent truly knowing you. I pulled the original flash drive from my pocket. I carry it with me always. I watched all your videos. I listened to everything you left me. I finally understood that you knew me better than I knew you. You were mature, wiser, braver than your old man. You forgave me when I didn't deserve forgiveness. You loved me when I didn't know how to love you back. I placed my hand on the cold headstone. I promise you something, Darren. I'm going to make your death mean something. I'm going to use the insurance money, the money I recovered, all of it, to help others, so that no other son dies silently while being poisoned by someone who should protect him. And I kept that promise. With the help of Ira and Malik, I established the Darren Thorne Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping victims of domestic, psychological, and financial violence. We offered free legal advice, safe shelters, private investigators for suspicious cases, and hotlines for people who felt something was wrong in their families but had no proof. We provided education on manipulation, gaslighting, and financial abuse. The response was overwhelming. In the first month, we received more than 100 calls. People trapped in situations similar to Darren's. Children being blackmailed by narcissistic parents. Husbands being robbed by manipulative wives. People who knew something was wrong but lacked the resources to prove it or escape. We helped 17 people escape abusive situations in the first 6 months. We provided evidence that led to 5 arrests for domestic fraud. We saved 2 lives when people reported suspicions of poisoning, and we were able to intervene in time. Every person we helped was a way of honoring Darren. Every life saved was a victory against the kind of malice that took him away. I got personally involved in every case. I talked to the victims. I listened to them, told them my story, and promised them they weren't alone, that someone believed them, that there was hope. Malik joined the foundation as the director of operations. He quit his job in tech to dedicate himself completely to this. Darren saved me more times than I can count, he told me. He helped me when I was depressed in college. He lent me money when I needed it. He was always there. This is the least I can do for his memory. We worked together almost every day, building something Darren would have loved, something that helped others like him. A year after the sentencing of Faith, the foundation had grown exponentially. We had offices in 3 cities, a team of 15 employees, hundreds of volunteers, and alliances with police and district attorneys' offices in several states. We had helped more than 300 people. And every time someone thanked us with tears in their eyes, every time that we saved someone from a fate similar to Darren's, I felt that my son was there with me, guiding me, giving me purpose. I had finally found a way to be the father Darren deserved. Although I arrived too late for him, I was not too late for others. And in that, I found something akin to peace. 2 years after Faith's sentencing, I received an unexpected call. It was from the warden of the prison where she was held. "Mr. Thorne, your ex-wife has requested to see you. She says she has something important to tell you before she dies." My heart stopped. What's wrong with her? The warden sighed. "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Doctors give her 3 months, maximum. She insists she needs to speak with you. You are not obligated to go, of course." I hung up the phone and stared at the wall of my office at the foundation. Go see Faith, the woman who murdered my son. What could she possibly say that was worth hearing? Malik walked in with papers and noticed my expression. "What happened, Mr. Thorne?" I told him. He was thoughtful. Maybe she needs to confess something else. Maybe there are things you still don't know, or maybe she's just looking to manipulate you one last time. But I think you should go. For you? not for her. To close that chapter completely. 3 days later, I drove 2 hours to the state penitentiary. The building was gray, menacing, surrounded by barbed wire and watchtowers. I was registered, searched, and led through several cold corridors to the visitation room. There she was, Faith, or what was left of her. She had lost at least 45 pounds. Her hair, once always perfect, was gray and sparse. Her skin had a yellowish tone. The handcuffs on her wrists seemed too large for her thin arms. When she saw me, something akin to relief crossed her face. "You came," she said in a weak voice. I sat down opposite her, separated by a metallic table. A guard remained nearby, vigilant. "The warden said you wanted to see me. Here I am. What do you want?" Faith coughed, a dry, painful sound. "I'm dying, Arthur. The doctors give me weeks, maybe days. And before I go, I need to tell you something." I crossed my arms. "I'm listening." She looked down at her shackled hands. "I want you to know that I don't regret Shayla. I don't regret falling in love. I don't regret wanting to be free." She looked up. "But I regret Darren. Every night in this cell, I see him. His face when he discovered me with Shayla. His fear in those last few days haunts me, Arthur. His ghost won't leave me alone." I felt rage bubbling in my chest. "Good. Let it haunt you. You deserve it." "I know," she said quietly. "I know. But I need you to know the whole truth. Not just the one you found on the flash drives." My attention sharpened. "What truth?" Faith took a painful, deep breath. "Darren's life insurance, the $600,000. I convinced him to take it out 3 years ago. I told him it was for protection, that everyone should have one. I helped him choose the plan and put myself down as the sole beneficiary because I told him it would be safer from tax issues." She paused. "I started planning his death from that moment, Arthur. 3 years. It wasn't something spontaneous. It wasn't because he discovered me with Shayla. That just accelerated the plan." I felt nauseated. "Are you telling me you planned to murder your son for 3 years?" She nodded weakly. "I needed the money to leave with Shayla. And Darren was the only son, young, healthy. His insurance was easy to get and would pay well. At first, it was just an idea, a backup plan. But when he discovered me with Shayla, when he threatened to tell you everything, it became a necessity." She wiped tears running down her sunken cheeks. "I'm a monster, I know it, and I'm going to pay for it in hell, if there is one." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice tense. "Why did you bring me all this way?" Faith looked me directly in the eyes. "Because there's more. Something you never discovered, something Darren never knew." My blood ran cold. "What is it?" She hesitated, fighting with herself. Finally, she spoke. "The money I stole, the $300,000 from your accounts, wasn't just for me and Shayla. There was another person involved. Someone who helped me forge the signatures, create the phantom accounts, move the money without leaving a trace." "Who?" I demanded. Faith closed her eyes. "Your partner, Erwin. Not that Emmett. I mean your business partner. Erwin Vance. The engineer you worked with for 20 years. The world stopped. Erwin Vance had been my right-hand man at Keystone Engineering. My friend. Darren's godfather. No, that's impossible. Erwin would never do something like that." "Oh, yes," Faith laughed bitterly. "Erwin helped me with everything. He had access to your commercial accounts. He knew your signature patterns. He taught me how to make the transfers without raising suspicion. And in exchange, he kept $100,000, a third of the total. I felt the floor open beneath me. Why? Why would Irwin do that? Faith coughed again. Because his company was failing. He had gambling debts. He desperately needed the money, and I offered it to him in exchange for his silence and his help. And Darren knew about this? My voice was barely a whisper. Faith shook her head. Darren never discovered Irwin. He only knew about me and the doctor. That's why Irwin never showed up on the flash drives. He stayed in the shadows. And when you recovered the money and I was arrested, he played the surprised, loyal friend who couldn't believe what I had done. But he's just as guilty as I am. I stood up abruptly. The chair fell backward. Why are you telling me this now? What do you gain from this? Faith looked at me with empty eyes. Because I'm dying, and I no longer care about protecting anyone. Because Irwin got away with it, while I rot here. And because you deserve to know the whole truth, even if it hurts. The guard escorted me out. Faith called out behind me, Arthur, one more thing. Darren loved you. He truly loved you. That's the only pure thing that came out of our rotten marriage. Don't forget that. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I walked out of that prison, staggering, processing what I had just heard. Irwin Vance, my partner, my supposed friend, had betrayed my trust, stolen my money, and helped the woman who killed my son. And he was still free. I called Savannah Rhodes, the prosecutor, from the parking lot. I told her everything. She listened in silence. I need evidence, Arthur. A confession from Faith in prison is not enough without proof to back it up. She could be lying to cause more pain. It's what narcissists do. And if I get evidence, really, I asked, if I find records connecting Irwin to the fraud, can you arrest him? Savannah thought for a moment. If you get solid proof, yes. We can reopen the investigation and add additional charges. Fraud doesn't expire that easily. But I need documents, transfers, something tangible. I drove straight to Ira's office and told him everything. He immediately started making calls. We're going to hire forensic auditors. We're going to review every transaction Irwin Vance made in the last 5 years. If he was involved, we'll find it. And we did. It took 3 months, but we found it. The auditors discovered an offshore account in the name of a shell company Irwin had created. That account received exactly $100,000 in 3 transfers during the period when Faith was stealing. The dates had matched perfectly. We also found deleted emails that Irwin thought he had permanently erased. Emails with Faith discussing the transfers, the forged signatures, the risks. With that evidence, Savannah obtained an arrest warrant. Irwin was arrested in his office in front of all his employees. He tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. His trial was swift. With Faith's precedents and the clear evidence, he was sentenced to 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. His reputation was destroyed. His company closed. He lost everything. I was in the courtroom when they read the sentence. Irwin looked at me with hatred. This is all your fault, Arthur. If you had been a better husband, Faith never would have needed my help. I stood up and looked directly at him. No, this is your fault. You chose to betray your friend. You chose to steal. You chose to be an accomplice. Now you'll pay for those choices. As they escorted him out of the room in handcuffs, he whispered, I hope it's worth it. I hope all this revenge makes you feel whole. I didn't answer because I knew he was right about something. Revenge didn't make me feel whole, but justice did. A month later, I received another call from the prison. Faith had died. Cancer took her in the middle of the night. I didn't go to her funeral. There was nothing to say, nothing to mourn. That woman had died for me years ago, when she poisoned our son. Her physical death was just a formality. 5 years have passed since Darren's death. 5 years since I found that safe. That changed everything. 5 years since I discovered the marriage I believed in was a lie, and that the woman I loved was a monster. Today I turned 71, and I'm standing in front of my son's grave on a cold October morning. "Hello, Darren," I begin, as I do every week. "I came to tell you the news." I kneel and clear the dried leaves that have accumulated around the headstone. The foundation celebrated 5 years last month. We've helped more than 2,000 people now, 2,000 families who didn't have to go through what we did. We've opened offices in 8 states. We have 50 full-time employees, and it's all thanks to you, son. Thanks to your bravery in documenting everything. Thanks to you not staying silent, even when you were afraid. I pull a photo from my wallet. It's of a family we rescued last month. A mother and her 2 children who escaped a husband who was slowly poisoning them with carbon monoxide, making it look like an accident. We saved her in time. This family is alive because of you, Darren. Because you taught me to see the signs. Because you showed me that evil exists even in the places closest to our hearts. And because you gave me the courage to confront it. I sit on the cold grass next to his grave. Your mom died 4 years ago. Cancer. She suffered at the end. That's what they told me. Part of me wants to say she deserved it. But the truth is, I only feel emptiness when I think of her. There's no more rage. There's no more hatred. Only the sadness of knowing that the woman I once loved never truly existed. She was a mask, and beneath it was something dark I refused to see. I pull at the grass, distractedly. Shayla is 3 years into her sentence. She still has 12 left. Dr. Emmett Hayes committed suicide in prison 2 years ago. He couldn't handle the guilt, they said. And Erwin Vance, my ex-partner, is serving his sentence. I saw him last month at a parole hearing. He looked old, broken. His request was denied. He'll spend at least 5 more years locked up. The wind blows cold, and I pull up the collar of my coat. I sold the engineering company 3 years ago. I couldn't keep working on something that stole so much time from you. Now, I dedicate every minute to the foundation. Malik is still the director of operations. He got married last year. A beautiful girl named Elisa. At the wedding, they raised a toast to you. He said you indirectly introduced him to her because they met at one of the foundation's events. Your legacy keeps touching lives, son. I pull the original flash drive from my pocket. I carry it with me always. I still watch your videos sometimes when I have hard days, when I feel like I can't go on. Your voice reminds me why I do this. Because every morning I get up and keep fighting. Tears run down my wrinkled face. I wish I could tell you this in person. I wish you could see me now. See who I've become. I'm not the same man I was, the man who failed you, the man who chose concrete bridges over building a relationship with his son. That man died the day I discovered you're safe. I wipe my tears with the back of my hand. The man I am now knows you. He knows you through your words, your videos, your actions. I see your intelligence in how methodically you documented everything. I see your compassion and how you worried about protecting me, even when you were terrified. I see your bravery and how you confronted your own mother, knowing what she was capable of. You are my hero, Darren, not the other way around. You are mine. I place fresh flowers in the vase next to the headstone. Yellow roses, his favorite, Malik told me. Last week, I gave a lecture at a university. I talked about domestic psychological violence, about how abuse doesn't always leave visible marks, about how manipulators are experts at seeming perfect while destroying others in private. There were 300 students. At the end, 20 of them came to talk to me. 20 young people who recognized patterns in their own families. We were able to help 5 of them that same week. 5 lives changed because you had the courage to expose the truth. The sun begins to rise behind the clouds, illuminating the headstone. I spoke with a sculptor last month. We're going to create a monument in the Central Park, a statue of a son protecting his father, with a plaque bearing your name and what you did. I want the whole city to know who you were. I want your story to inspire others to be brave, to not stay silent when they see evil, to document, to seek help, to trust that the truth always finds a way to come out. I stand up with difficulty. My knees aren't what they used to be. I have a meeting in 2 hours with a new family. A daughter who suspects her stepfather is drugging her mother to control the finances. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I'm going to help them. I'm going to use everything I learned from you. And if we manage to save her, it will be another victory in your name. I put my hand on the cold headstone. I love you, son. I wish I had told you more when you were alive. I wish I had been the father you deserved from the beginning. But even though I arrived late, I'm finally here. I finally see you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life honoring your memory, helping others. I kiss my fingers and press them against his name engraved in the stone. Until next week, Darren, your old man who finally learned what truly matters. As I walk back to my car, I feel something strange. It's not happiness, exactly. I will never be completely happy without my son. But it is peace. It is purpose. It is the certainty that Darren did not die in vain. That his death, horrible as it was, saved hundreds of other people. That his bravery created a legacy that will live on long past my 71st year. Before starting the car, I check my phone. There's a message from Malik. Mr. Thorne, we have an urgent case. A mother suspects her son is being poisoned by his own wife. We need to act fast. Can you come to the office? I smile sadly. Another case. Another chance to make a difference. I reply, I'm on my way. As I drive through the city streets, I pass the building where I used to work, where I spent 40 years designing concrete structures. Structures that still stand solid and unyielding. But now I'm building something different. I'm building hope. I'm building justice. I'm building a world where the Darrens of the future don't have to die alone and terrified. And this invisible, yet powerful structure is the most important one I will ever build. The Darren Thorne Foundation is not just a building with offices and employees. It is a living monument to my son. It is my way of telling him every day, I see you, I hear you, your life mattered, your death will not be forgotten. And your love, that love you left me in videos and letters, That love transformed me from a man who built concrete bridges into a father who finally learned how to build bridges to hearts. I park in front of the foundation's office. On the exterior wall is a large photo of Darren smiling. Below it reads, "In memory of Darren Thorne, brave son, silent hero, savior of thousands." Every time I see it, I feel him looking at me, approving of what I do, finally proud of his father. And as I walk in to help another family in crisis, I whisper one last time, "This is for you, son. Everything I do is for you until we meet again." Because now I know something with absolute certainty. The true love between a father and a son does not end with death. It transforms, it expands, it becomes something greater than any building or bridge. It becomes legacy. It becomes hope. It becomes the force that changes the world, one life saved at a time. And that is the final gift Darren gave me. Not just the truth about his death, but the purpose for my life. And for that, despite the pain, despite the tears, despite everything I lost, I can honestly say it was worth moving forward. Because every person we save is Darren living again. And that makes getting up every morning worthwhile. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.